Hi there guys, my name's Smokey Joe and I'm the founder and owner of Bongalong, a brand fighting for the legalization of cannabis in South Africa. But right now, we're filming episodes where we will be asking people how they feel about the legalization of cannabis in South Africa. What we hope to achieve through this is spread awareness and educate people on the innumerable benefits that the legalization of cannabis will hold for us as a community.
Joe, I'm out here in Richards Bay in the heart of Zululand doing some more interviews with people who use cannabis medicinally. So tell me, ma'am, what's your name? You can just talk there where you are.
Okay, Oneti's okay.
Yeah.
I'm Chantel. I'm Chantel White.
Chantel, tell me, what do you do?
I work for the Bobby Greenash Foundation now. I just do a bit of everything. We just make sure people get the oils that are sick.
So tell me, what's your story around medical cannabis been?
Okay, so it started when I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I went for chemo, and I've always been quite in touch with listening to my body, and I got to a point where I felt that if I carried on with the chemo I would probably die. So I cancelled the chemo. Before I cancelled the chemo, I obviously prepared to die because I felt like I just wasn't going to come out of it. I looked terrible. I remember when I mentioned to my doctor that I wanted to cancel the chemo, he said that if I cancel the chemo and I don't carry on with it, I won't even make the next 6 months. And that was about a year and a half ago. So I took my chances. I trusted Henny and Sheldon a lot, but I had a good feeling about it. It was hard to break away from the normal conventional thing because my parents and your loved ones, they're scared. People are terrified of going against what the doctor says. But I did it because I felt better on the oil. So I carried on taking the oil, doubling up on the oil, and changed my lifestyle, changed my diet, took all kinds of supplements and things, and I maintained a healthy lifestyle, and since then I've actually tested clear.
Tell me, what's your name?
Well, everybody knows me as Bobby Greenash. Real name, Sheldon Kramer.
And tell me, Sheldon, what do you do?
Well, most of the time I sort of spend running the Bobby Greenash Foundation, which is largely a medical cannabis biopharmaceutical, if you want, company which is really, we're involved in quite a lot of projects, but fundamentally we make herbal medicinal remedies, amongst them cannabis oils, which we give to whoever needs it. Really, it's as simple as that. We have a policy that if you need it, you get it. There's nothing else to it. As far as legalization goes, it's way long overdue, and if we keep hanging around waiting for the politicians to get off their asses, nothing's going to ever be done. So essentially that's what we do, because there are people that can afford to pay for it, and we sell it at a nominal price, but it's largely a case of whatever the rich can afford to pay, we use that to generate funds to make more medicine for people that can't afford to pay. So now we've got a sustainable alternative healthcare system running which works. Well, we've got so many success stories. It would be unfair to sort of single out one, but if I had to, it would probably be Mabushli, which is a young albino girl which we've been treating. And we've managed to largely cure the cancer that was on her face. She had septic sarcoma, sent home to die by local government institutions, and we've taken this child from someone that's starving and had a couple of days to live to a child that's functioning normally. And there's been a couple of businesses that have offered to help her with reconstructive surgery. So she's going down to Cape Town probably in the next couple of weeks or so to go through a 4-week intensive therapy to reconstruct the damage that the sarcoma had done.
The Robin Hoods, the Starsky and Hutches of cannabis in South Africa. If you guys want to support any organization, this would be the one to support. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, buddy.
Stay blessed. Keep it real. Hey.
Come out to Woodstock in Cape Town to interview another person who has used and is still using cannabis medicines to treat a serious problem. So tell me, sir, what's your name?
Frank Rosen.
And Frank, what is it that you do?
I run a distribution company, wholesale to pharmacy.
Okay. And how do you feel about the legalization of cannabis in South Africa?
I think it's imperative. After my little episode, I've proved to myself, if not to my family and friends, that it definitely works. It's not a magic bullet on its own, but in conjunction with a few other variables, it definitely does help.
Okay. And tell me, what's the story of your own story that you have that proves it to you that it is a medicine?
Well, I was diagnosed in March 2014 with bladder cancer. I was told to do a chemo session, which I've done, mitomycin C. That failed. I was then given BCG, 6 episodes of BCG. That unfortunately failed. I was then told I had to have a radical cystectomy to remove the bladder, prostate, and land up with a little plastic handbag. I wasn't keen on that, so I opted out and decided to try medical marijuana. And my then urologist laughed at me, said I was probably wasting my time, and if I didn't have this bladder out urgently, I was going to have a problem if it metastasized to kidneys and liver. I went helter-skelter with the medical marijuana, upped the dosages, started using suppositories and capsules at night and vaporizing and edibles and just loading my system with THC and CBD. And I went in at the end of May to see if I could have a neo-bladder as opposed to an outside bag, neo-bladder being built internally. And, I was told that I didn't need the op, and they couldn't explain it medically, but they had no... I wasn't in remission. I was clear, gone, no cancer. This is after I was told by my first urologist that mitomycin C and BCG had failed. Yeah. And they wanted to do this emergency radical cystectomy. Here I am 2 years later, healthier than I've been before, and feeling great. One tends to think that you take a couple of joints or the misconceptions of medical marijuana and you get stoned for a couple of days and you're cured. It doesn't work like that. It's not a recreational drug. It's a serious medicinal herb. I changed my diet completely, cut out sugar, cut out coffee, alcohol. I was told not to microwave anything, don't brine meat because it's carcinogens. Obviously, smoking was a taboo. And a bit of exercise.
Bo, tell me first of all, what is it that you've been doing for a lifetime?
Yeah, well, I've been managing companies until recently. I was CEO of manganese division for an international trading company called Glencore. And, that's basically what I've been doing. I've had to retire, unfortunately, as a result of contracting cancer, and now busy fighting the fight. Well, the original cancer was a sarcoma that was in what they call the vena cava, and it was attached to that. That was taken out, and then it's now metastasized to the liver. So it's quite a serious situation. It's terminal. They didn't give me much time in January when it was, let's say, discovered the second time. But as I said, we started immediately once they told me that there was nothing normal medical science can do for me. I went on to the Cannabis and also a nutritional program or diet, strict diet. So we've been doing that for a long time, and the Cannabis has been definitely, I think, has been probably one of the major issues in assisting and making, helping you getting through the emotional and the pain as well. Certainly, I've not experienced very little pain, so it's in that sense has been very good.
Coming from a background, I'm guessing, or especially in South Africa, coming from a background where cannabis was demonized, how hard of a process did you go through to make the decision to try the cannabis medicines and wrap your mind around this idea that this demonized element in society was actually a medicine?
Yeah, I think, certainly my age people, it was demonized, and I myself, was very much against people using it in the past, obviously because you don't know any better. But certainly the last few years, the medicine results that people have had in medical fraternity with cannabis has made it's an obvious thing to do. And when you are in a position where I was, where you basically told, we can't do anything for you, you're going to die, then you basically will try anything, you know. So I don't feel shy about it. I feel it's something that it certainly is working for me, and I know it's worked for many people. It hasn't healed the cancer in my case yet. We hope it will still, but certainly, you know, I'm alive after 7 months, and I don't think I certainly wasn't expected to be here today. So, and I think the cannabis certainly has got a big role to play in that.
My name is Hilton Elsky.
And we are here today to interview people who, well, I'm here to interview you because you use cannabis medicinally. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, so in February 2013, I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, temporal lobe epilepsy, and clinical depression. For the past 2.5 years of my life, I was pumped with medicines. I was on 1,400 milligrams of sodium valproate. I was on 400 milligrams of Lamictal. I was on thyroxine because my epilepsy medication messed up my thyroid gland, so I had to take additional medication for that. And the side effects, it would lead to insomnia, like my appetite up and down. I had no cold tolerance, anything. So for a while I used the medication, and then it came to a point last year where, due to financial and family issues, I could not afford my medication because it was just expensive and I had no medical aid. So for a period about the week after I went pure cold turkey, I hadn't slept for about 8 to 9 days. I had barely eaten. I had lost about 15, 16, 17 kgs, and like my depression took a major toll on me, and I lost all like self-esteem, and I just took a massive downward turn, and I was just desperate. And I was with one of my friends who had a joint on him, and I didn't smoke because it would conflict with my medication. But now I'm not on medication anymore. I'm like, okay, I'm really desperate. I haven't slept, I haven't eaten. Let's just try it. So we split the joints, and basically literally after that, I had my first full meal in about a week and a half. And because I had already previously struggled with I had mild bulimia because of I had self-esteem in that. And so basically it boosted my appetite again, and I actually slept. I had more than 10 hours of sleep, and I haven't had 10 hours of sleep, I think, in the past 4 or 5 years before that. And so I'm like, okay, I wanted it to help me, but at first I didn't really like the high because it just made me uneasy feeling medicated because I just came off the medication. So my friend said, okay, you can just boil it down, you can just keep all the CBD and use less of the THC. So I started making teas out of it, and my epilepsy isn't triggered by light or anything. It's triggered by overwhelming emotion or a lot of stress. So if if my hands do start shaking or something's going to happen, I just make a small glass of tea, and that curbs my shakes for about a week. I used to be chronically, my hands used to shake permanently. My friends would call me the old man because I thought I had Parkinson's or something. And then I just started drinking the tea, and my hands started stabilizing, my mood stabilized. I could actually eat. It was such a relief to actually be able to eat. From then on, I've been fully in support from that day forward. I'm like, you know what? I've got friends who are struggling and can't afford medication. I've got friends who've got eating disorders. I've got friends with insomnia. I'm like, but their families and the laws control, and they're too scared to try. I'm thinking if it was legal, my friends and family would the quality of life would improve so much more. And that's why I'm behind it so much.
Johanneru. And Johanneru, could you elaborate on what it is that you do for a living?
I'm a computer programmer. I've been programming ever since I can remember, before computers were there. Been programming microchips. And I have written systems in 25 different computer languages in my last 30 years. And I'm 50 years old and I'm still a programmer.
But now the question for this episode, we're interviewing people who use cannabis as a medicine. Would you elaborate a little bit on how you've been using cannabis as a medicine, and for what is it that you're using cannabis as a medicine?
Okay. I have a disorder, a hereditary disorder called Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. And the myelin sheath of my nerves are demyelinating. I can't pronounce that properly. In other words, my nerves are dying. It's a little bit like multiple sclerosis, except for the fact that mine's only dying on the long ends of the peripheral nerves, whereas multiples in MS, it's on both sides. So mine's not as severe as things, but it's also progressive. And one of the bad effects that Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease has on me is the fact that my diaphragm muscles are weak. And quite a few years ago, I found out that I stop breathing while I'm sleeping. And so I've been diagnosed with sleep apnea. They gave me a CPAP machine, and I nearly died from the CPAP machine. CPAP stands for continuous positive air pressure movement. They said to me, well, why don't you just take a Xanax and you won't have those anxiety attacks. And then I explained to them, but I use cannabis for my pain, and on the one hand, and secondly, cannabis is for me is an extremely good anti-anxiety medicine. And in that case, before I would take Xanax, which is a central nervous system depressant. But before I take Xanax, I would rather smoke cannabis, because for the last 30 years I've been smoking cannabis to help me go to sleep, and it's worked. And the fact that I stop breathing, and my mind says to me that if I take Xanax, which suppresses my central nervous system, and I stop breathing, what is there to wake me up again? And for me, that's death. And I don't know how the doctors can just overlook that small little incident. And so, yeah, I use cannabis to help me breathe at night. And I know it's a little bit of a controversial thing, the fact that smoking something that is supposedly to clog your lungs up opens up my lungs, and it helps me breathe. It literally helps me breathe. For me, it's very important to either vaporize or smoke it. I don't use the oils. The reason for not using the oils is because I don't like the hallucinogenic effect of delta 11 THC. And the cannabis that I smoke is mostly delta 9 THC. I have found out that if you ingest it, that the liver metabolizes delta 9 THC into delta 11 THC. And therefore you get that spacey, trippy feeling from what they call space cakes from ingesting the stuff. Now I get the same effect from the oils if I should ingest the oils. And I found that if I inhale it or either vaporize or smoke it, that I get the sedative, cool, calm effect. Okay, the specific species of the cannabis is also extremely important for me in my case, because I need the cannabidiol part of it, and there is another cannabinoid called CBN, which is the oxidized THC. And that also, it sort of stops my mind from thinking. It makes you a little bit, I don't think so clearly. And that to me is a very, very, very good way to fall asleep, because if I have worries and I think about pain and stuff, then I somehow just forget about it.
So we had quite an interesting interview here with Johan. And just to give a quick recap on what it is that your medical conditions are and what you found, how various cannabis affected that.
Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. It's a neuropathy. My nerves are dying, and I get pain, I get depression, and my worst problem is my inability to breathe while I sleep. And if I smoke the right strain of cannabis, then I sleep. I don't want to say babies always wake up all the time. I sleep beautifully, and I'm healthy. I have an excellent life. Everything is this good. If you don't sleep, I promise you everything goes out the window. And I can't even think about how bad it goes when you don't sleep. So I'm not claiming that cannabis is curing my Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, but I'm telling you, without it, I would have been dead by now. And my quality of life is like, I have the same quality of life as a normal person.
Tonight we're sitting here with?
Rieta de Wet.
And Rieta de Wet, what do you do for a living right now?
I'm a student at Stellenbosch University and I'm 23 years old.
And what are you studying at Stellenbosch University?
I'm a student in speech, language and hearing therapy.
Right, and how's that going?
Well, it's going better now. I had a little pause because of my health, so I had to drop out and go back home and get a bunch of operations. But now it's going really well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what was these complications that you had with your health, or what is this health issue that you're dealing with?
Well, I have been diagnosed officially finally with myasthenia gravis, which is a very rare neuromuscular disease. Basically what it means is my nerves and my muscles can't communicate because my immune system attacks the junction where they're supposed to be doing that. And it's an autoimmune disease, so I started using cannabis, which is why you're talking to me. But yeah, I started getting progressively much weaker because it affects your voluntary muscles. And eventually I got so weak, it started with running while I was still able to exercise because I used to be an athlete. But then it started with running and just not being able to go as fast as I used to be able to go. And then it progressively got worse. And as I made my bed as like a 19-year-old girl, I got out of breath. I ended up being out of breath after just lifting a duvet. And then I went to a billion specialists. All of them just told me that I should take antidepressants because apparently muscle weakness and antidepressants correlate. But anyway, and eventually it got so bad that I couldn't physically lift my arms like this. I couldn't even do this. So I had to go home because even though I was still passing all my subjects, I was physically not able to go to class, which was, kind of hectic. And then I went home and then I got a lot of medical things done.
Okay. And Zaki, you mentioned that you started using cannabis, but before you went on the cannabis treatments, what was the treatments that you went for with the doctors and the normal medical procedures?
Well, that's quite hectic because I only started with cannabis recently, which is when it started going better, coincidentally. But I started off with corticosteroids called prednisone, which if you go Google them, basically if you ask any med student about cortisone or prednisone, they'll remember it because it's the drug that has the most side effects, especially on long-term use, which is why it's really not great, especially if you're 18 years old and you start taking it chronically and you want to live a little while longer, especially if the drug is the one thing that's killing you. But anyway, so I started on a low dose of cortisone treatment and immunosuppressive drug called Imuran, which didn't work, which is basically like chemotherapy and a drug but a lower dosage. And I also have Mestinon that I drink every 3 hours. I used to drink every 3 hours because I couldn't drink more than that with my body weight. And then they also performed a thymectomy because they believe the thymus gland, which sits on top of your heart, is a part of your immune system. It controls your immune system, and they don't exactly know what it does, but they realize that with my condition, because it's rare, there's not a lot of evidence as to exactly why it helps, but because it sort of helped, I had a 33% chance actually of going into remission, but it's 33% that I didn't have before, so I took it, and I had open heart surgery where they removed the thymus gland, and then it can take up to 4 years to take effect. So we're still waiting to see if that's helping, because that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
And then now I started recently, the Imuran didn't work. I get immunoglobulin treatments every 6 weeks, and then we started with chronic chemotherapy now. So I go for chemotherapy every month to control my autoimmune disease.
Okay, and how's the side effects and so on from the chemotherapy, and how's that influenced your life since going on the full-time chemotherapy?
Well, I started with chemo in December last year, December 2015, and I started using cannabis as an active part of the treatment of the side effects, which I'll get to now, in January. And this is the 9th infusion that I've gone for, so I've still got 3 left. And this one, I didn't vomit once, which is for someone that with the first session, I needed to take my meds preemptively, otherwise I wouldn't be able to keep anything in long enough to take my meds. So the main thing I use the cannabis for is for vomiting, because getting chemo every month, every 4 weeks, you kind of don't want to spend the whole weekend on the toilet, man. It's not nice. Not in that way, at least.
Yeah, I agree fully. Okay, so in your personal opinion, the cannabis has had a drastic effect on your nausea?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I study full-time. I don't have like a half-time schedule or anything just because I'm sick. I'm sick and I have to keep up with normal people, and I also have to go for chemo every month. So every 4 weeks, I have to have 5 days where I can't do anything. So basically what I do in those 5 days is I get really high and I allow myself to sleep it off. I allow myself to process everything. I tell all my lecturers beforehand I'm going for chemo on Friday, I take off the weekend, and then usually by Tuesday I'm back in class. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the weed.